So what we want to do is we want to undo FOIL, right? So I want you guys to think about FOIL. We're going to do the exact opposite today because factoring means undoing multiplication, right? So FOIL tells us first, outside, inside, last. So first, outside, inside, last. I want you to keep this in mind as we go through this today because we're going to go backwards in this process. So if you're looking at this polynomial, the 5x squared, that comes from the f part in FOIL, right? That's the first. So we know that this is the f part in FOIL. And the 2 comes from the L part in FOIL, right? That's the last being multiplied together. So we have our first, and we have our last. And then the 7x comes from the O and the I in FOIL, right? So what we want to do is reverse FOIL and come up with a factored answer. So let's try to guess and check this. So starting with the f in FOIL, what are the only two numbers, and we'll ignore the variables for now, what are the only two numbers that multiply to 5? Just call out.
1 and 5.
That's it, right? There are no other options. So we are guaranteed that this is a 5x and an x. There is no other possibility, right? So far we're not guessing. We're just correct. All right, now, the next part in our binomial, let's look at our signs. We've got a positive 5, positive 7, positive 2. So then everybody, what goes in these parentheses for our signs?
Plus.
Okay, so far, no guessing. We know that we're correct. The guessing comes at the very end, which is what we're going to do right now, and it's really not even that much of a guess. What are the only, now we're looking at the L in FOIL. What are the only two numbers that multiply to 2?
1.
All right, so then you either have a 1 and a 2, or a 2 and the 1, right? This is where the guess part comes in. But if you think about this, what we need to do is we need to check the O and the I in FOIL, right? And it makes, if you think about the numbers that we have written here, we end up with a 7. So multiplying the 5 with a 2 is obviously too big. So really, this one we get for free, that this has to be a 2 here and a 1 here. So let's just do a quick kind of recap of what we just did. We found, using FOIL, we find the F and L parts, right? Even though we didn't know where the L part went, if it was a 1 or a 2 or a 2 and a 1, we still knew what it was, right? We had our options. So that was the first thing we did. Parts, I should say, of FOIL. And then once we have that, we probably are going to have to guess the placement of the L, right? You might have to do this part, or you might just know it. Guess the L placement. So our example was 2 and 1, or it was also a 1 and 2, right? We had to pick which one of those it was going to be. And then lastly, to make sure we're right, we need to check the O and I parts in FOIL. There are other ways to do these types of factoring. You may have learned them before, or if you look them up online, there are multiple other ways to do this, and you might like those better. In my experience, this is the best and fastest way once you get used to doing this, right? It's not the only way at all, but it's, in my opinion, the best way to do this. Okay, so if they're prime numbers, this makes it really nice, right? Let's look at, and I'm almost always going to give you prime numbers because that's what I care more that we can do it with a problem like this. But to kind of get a point across, let's look at if we had a problem like this, 6x squared plus 17x plus 10. This is more or less about as hard as it can get with when everything's positive. So let's start building these binomials, and as I said, this is really just to kind of get the point across. We're going to look at a whole bunch with just prime numbers to make it easy. Let's start with the f part in FOIL. So once again, call this out. What numbers multiply to 6? Okay, so we had this time we have two options. As you guys said, we could have a 6x and an x, or we could have a 2x and a 3x. And the reason I'm only writing these options and not writing like x and 6x is because once you have them placed, right, we don't have to worry about that. We'll worry about the L portion, okay? But once we place these, they're just set. We know that both signs are plus. All right, so then, what numbers multiply to 10? Okay, so then this is where there's actually a lot more options, right? You have 5, 2, 2, 5, 1, 10, 10, 1. You don't have to write all these down if you don't want. Look what we're adding to in the middle, a 17x. So think about what doesn't make any sense. If you multiply 6x with 10, what's 6 times 10? 60. That's not an option, right? That's way too big. So we don't want to do that. So get rid of the 1 and 10. That can't be a possibility. What's 6x times 5?
30.
Okay, that's too large, so get rid of that option, right? So really, we broke this down pretty quickly into just two possibilities, and two possibilities is not too many to check. So even that, that was with the 6's, right? And then we could go through the 2's as well. You guys said 6 first, so I wrote it down first. We might have to do the same process with the 2's if we're wrong here with the 6. So then if we're continuing to go, we can check the 6 and the 2, and then we could do the 6 with the 1. But if we're adding to a 17 here, what's 6 times 2? And what's 5 times 1?
5.
Those are going to add to a 17. So this actually worked out. We didn't have to check the 2. That was nice. So we found our answer. It didn't take too long. Check that. We got, this was a 12x plus 5x, 17x. Yes. And as I said, this problem is about as hard as it gets when all the signs are positive. Most of our problems are going to look like this first one, where you get a prime number, so you're guaranteed you don't have to guess at first. Right? But that's just this is the thought process we should go through. Okay? So let's try some problems. Slot for our parentheses. So what's going to go in just right here?
5x and
That's it, right? We know that for sure. We get a 5x and an x. And then, Lexi's not here. Shiloh, what are our signs? Pluses or minuses? What do we got? All right. Both of these are positive. Now, my thought process for the rest of this problem. I know that the only options for 7 are 1 and 7, 7 and 1, right? That's it. So 1 and 7. And then I'm getting to a 36 in the middle. So if you think about the O and I parts in FOIL, the only way to get to a 36 in the middle is 5 has to be multiplied with the 7 to get that large. So I'm going to first check 1, 7 instead of 7, 1. And then, so let's do that. 5 times 7, 1 times x, we get 35x plus x is 36x. That works. Right? So we did this one correctly. So next one, Mitchell, just the f part for binomials. What goes in those first spots?
3x and x.
That's it. Good. Abigail, what are our signs? Okay, both negative. And then once again, we have 7 here. So 7 and 1 are our options. We end up with a 10 in the middle, right? So to get to a 10 in the middle, 3 times 7 is a bad idea. So let's check a 1 and a 7 here and see what happens. So we're going to get 3x times 1, negative 7 times x, so negative 3x minus 7x is negative 10x. Yes, we did this one correctly as well, right? So notice what we're doing. We're looking ahead to the middle. How can we get to the O and the I, or that middle term, that B term, when we're doing this? Spencer, Carl, the F part for part C, what goes in the first slot?
5x and x.
That's it. Nothing else. Stella, what are our signs? Okay, so far so good. And then 20. Now 20 has more options, right? We have 20 and 1, we have 5 and 4, we have 10 and 2. Now here's kind of, I don't know if a trick is the right word, but something to note. Chances are when you have this many options, I would go with what comes to your head first. When you guys think numbers that multiply to 20, what do you think first? 5 and 4, right? That's what most people think of. So I would check 5 and 4 before you check 20 and 1 or 10 and 2. I'm not saying that those won't come up, but just, most likely it's going to be 5 and 4. Just kind of how a lot of these problems become made and how math teachers think. So 29 in the middle, right? The only way to get to a 29 in the middle, we'd have to multiply the 5 with a 5 and a 4 here. So let's check that with the O and I. 25x plus 4x is 29x. Right? We're good on this one. All right, one more problem. Eileen, what is the F part? What goes in the first slot for this problem?
3x.
3x and x. Michael, what are our signs?
They're both negative.
Okay. And now let's just fill in here. So we have 10 is 10 and 1, or 5 and 2. We're getting to a 17 in the middle, right? The 10 and 1 won't help us there. But I see a 17, and 3 times 5 is pretty close to that. So let's try a 5 here and a 2 here, and check that. Negative 15x minus 2x is negative 17x. Yep, we did this correctly. All right. That's kind of the thought process you should have with this guess and check method. Okay. Now let's move to something slightly different when C is negative. And let's do this one together. Really, what's someone raise your hand, what's the difference going to be in this problem? Abigail? So this makes the problem a little bit harder because our binomials are going to look like this. One's going to be have an addition, one's going to have a subtraction. And that makes it tougher because there's more options of what could go on. So here's really what we should do, is I would deal with the signs at the end. Plug in the signs at the end. So deal with signs or operations at the end. And so let's go through our same process that we've been doing. Okay. So Carter, what are the only two, well, not only two, only one option for what can go in the front?
5x and x.
That's it. And we're going to deal with our signs at the end, so we're not going to write plus or minus because we don't know where they go yet. All right, 27. What number multiplied 27, everybody? 9 and 3, what else? All right, 9 and 3 should come to our heads first, so let's check that one out. So we either have a 9 and a 3, or a 3 and a 9. We're getting to a 6 in the middle, though. Do you think you want to multiply 5 with a 9? No. So let's check this one. Right, once again, we'll deal with the signs at the end. So 5 times 3 is going to give us a 15x. 9 times x gives us a 9x. We want this to equal negative 6x. So what do our signs have to be? It looks like this one is going to work. Say it louder.
Negative 15 and positive 9.
There we go. Negative 15, positive 9. So that means a minus 3 here and a positive 9. So these are trickier, right? They do take a little bit more time, but the process is the exact same. Okay? Make sure you're still checking it with the O and the I, parts in FOIL. All right? And we'll go from there. Any volunteers? Anton, first one. Talk to us.
The first one I started out by putting 7x in the first part and then x in the second part. And then next what I did was I found that 5 and 2 multiplied 10, but I don't know which one's negative. And then I found that 7 times 2 is 14, and then minus 5 is 9, so I put positive 2 and then minus 5.
Awesome. Great description of what we need to do, right? That's the thought process we should have. Simply, we know the prime number here, 7x and x, great, and then kind of have to problem solve out. The 2 and the 5, which one's positive, which one's negative. All right, somebody else talk to us about part B. Abigail, go ahead.
You take 3x and x and put them in each of the parentheses. And then I found that 1 and 10 work, and because 29 is a big number, then I thought 10 should go by 3 and 1. And then I made the 10 negative because negative 30 plus 1 is 3.
Awesome, thank you. All right, so then I'm going to put one more problem up on the and all right, somebody factor for us at first and tell us what's at GCF, what happens when we take it out, Luke?
I did negative x and 3x just because it's...
Oh, for your first one?
Yeah.
So that wouldn't multiply to a negative 3x squared, right? Are you saying once you took out the negative? So let's first factor out a negative and then go from there. What happens if we take out a negative? Like,
It turns into 3x squared plus 32x plus 45.
it's really nice to have a leading coefficient that's positive. So it's always a great place to start. And then the negative just stays on the outside for our entire answer. So somebody new, talk to us about this problem. Go ahead, Michael. All you did was take out a negative, so keep going.
So, and then for me, I noticed that, okay, sorry. For me, I noticed that, for 32, if you multiplied 3x by 9,
Okay, so you have a 3x here,
Yeah, and then
and
an
what do you
x,
have here?
and an x.
And what numbers are you thinking about that multiply to 45?
9 and 5.
Okay, keep going.
Because I noticed that 3x times 9 is 27x, and then x times 5 is 32x.
Alright, 27x plus 5x is 32x. Yep, alright, there you go. That means we did this correctly. Okay, somebody else talk to us about common factor, take it out, what's left over. Spencer.
You take out a 2.
And what's left over?
6x squared plus 11x plus 3.
Okay, now, with the rest of this problem, as we have this, if I were you, who did not start with the f? Personally, I would not start here in this problem. You guys know why I wouldn't start there? Abby? There's 2 options. So where should we start?
3.
Start with the 3. This 3, you're guaranteed this is 1 and 3. So don't overthink it. Same thing with the signs. And now let's just guess the f part. It's the exact same process, just backwards. So sometimes if just your L portion is prime, use that to your advantage. Write a 1 and a 3 so you don't have to guess. This is just true, right? We know this is true. We're now going to have to guess the first part. Yeah.
Why would it not be 3 and 1?
It doesn't matter, right? So I'm picking these because it's a prime number. I would always start with prime numbers because there are no other options, right? And now we're going to use 6 and figure it out the other way. So we know that we have got 6x and x, and you've got 2x and 3x, right? But we already know part of the answer. So then just look in the middle, we're getting to an 11. If we're getting to an 11, that sure looks like we're going to need a 3x and a 2x here. Let's check. 9x plus 2x is 11x.